Hey everyone, I am back in to do our weekly recap. If you missed our session today in the throne room, you better get on over there and check it out. It was another great session. I want to say Ned and I brought together two phenomenal women to our conversation regarding sexual assault and exploitation and the and how that really impacts our mental health. Our guests were Reverend Dr. Denise Struthers, who has done her doctoral work around sex trafficking and really looking at the healing needed for the victims and the perpetrators. And our other guest was Sister Shar, Apostle Shar Phelps, who just has an awesome testimony, which she shares for the purpose of helping others to overcome. She really, from what she said to us, she hopes that she might be able to help people break the silence, and they just did an awesome job. I'll also tell you to check out their books. They are authors, and we will be posting that information on our page soon. So just go on and check it out and support and get the knowledge that you need and that they have to give and offer to you. As we continue the conversation, my brother, y'all know, brother Ned, shared his personal story and his stance on the need to have men hear and be at the table of these types of conversations, because what we know to be true is that many are under the assumption and the impression that sexual assault doesn't really happen to men, but it does. In today's listening session, what I want to say is that we kind of did a little different take. It was a little bit different than normal in the fact that we invited the divine into the conversation to heal the hearers, the victims, the perpetrators, the communities, and the systems. And we took a really big stance on how faith communities, particularly the churches and its leadership, um, are really dealing with these particular issues. We looked at it from a standpoint that the leadership and Dr. Denise talked about the church needing to confess its imperfections and dismantling the ideology that those who are in leadership positions are above the rest, right? That they don't have, that they're put on this pedestal. We talked about the church being able to handle the ways in which they address those who come to them with their experiences of trauma, really realizing and recognizing that everything that comes to them that they aren't familiar with or equipped with, to handle, that it's not a demon to be casted out, and that healing really needs to happen, and that can only happen if the church becomes more careful and aware of its presence within the community. And this really starts and ends with the church training and equipping its leadership with individuals who are trauma informed and understanding that in order for anyone to be effective in ministry today, they will have to see the need to deal with the person's mind, body, and soul. And I'm going to add to that experiences. So the church needs to be what Brother Ned said and I said was the hospital and the clinic, but Brother Ned said the emergency room to the rehab center. But I'll add this evening that we need to see ourselves as primary care physicians. If we do this thing right, we can stop things in our preventative care. So, what our obligation is to the body is to prevent, to equip people, and to give them the things and the vitamins that they need to prevent certain things from happening. Or when certain things do happen, they have the thing that they need that will sustain them through. I'm going to jump back to the beginning of where we kind of started. I started off with this conversation about something that I had read regarding the Olympian Simone Biles and her decision to really take a break for her mental health. The statement she made was so powerful as she kind of talked about being led to take the time off because it was necessary. She further kind of went into this whole statement about the importance of her having to focus on her mental health. Um, and what was really important to me was ending her statement with, uh, it just sucks when we're fighting within our own head. Um, that part about it sucking when we are fighting in our own head really stuck out for me. It kind of hit home for me as we began to have the conversation regarding sexual trauma and the impact that it has on our mental health. Today, I really wanted people, myself, included, to kind of really face this thing that has caused us, to stay in the darkness, so that we could be set free. It's really important for us to have this conversation about sexual assault and sexual exploitation, and really get loud about it so that we can shed the light on it, pull the covers off of it, expose it for what it is so that people can be set free. That's the only way we're going to move towards our healing. So, as we delved into the question regarding why men don't speak about their sexual exploitation or sexual assault experiences, we got a chance to kind of walk away with the understanding that men experience the same trauma events as girls do, but that they may handle it differently. And when we're thinking that they're acting out of anger, or that, there's some deficiencies there, that really it's them trying to figure out ways to cope and manage with what's going on inside of them. What we all did agree on was that whether it was male or female, we needed to figure out ways to help each other break free from the emotional baggage and personal self-medicating behaviors that may manifest itself, um, so that we might be able to get past the sexual trauma part and begin living right. Uh, it- we then began to address who and why there are victims of sexual assault. Um, that who and why is really important in this conversation, because um, I believe, and I began talking about the need to acknowledge the brain's inability to process in real time the traumatic event that was taking place. That oftentimes we think people are going to respond with this flight or fight type of zones in our brains, but in all actuality, most people respond with freeze. That this freezing becomes a safety measure in which one in which a person uses it in order to kind of get through a bad situation alive. I shared my own experience of having the feeling of the need to conform into something, an alternate me, in order to survive. Um, that what I saw and what I was experiencing, it was something that was happening to me, uh, because I wasn't really sure how to process the fact that it was happening to me from a person that I felt was supposed to love me and be in my corner. Um, in my mind, it was really about, how do I make the best of the bad situation? And what we heard from our participants was that this was a way that many cope through what we experience. Dr. Denise really called it by its clinical name as trauma bonding, which is bonding with your perpetrator because you're trying to survive through it. As she put it, it's really a coping mechanism to deal with the trauma, emotions, and anxiety and PTSD that comes with the traumaful experience, right? The event. We were then able to kind of shift the conversation into a place to talk about what would be needed for an individual to move past this place of trauma and just darkness and begin the journey toward their healing. My stance was strong in the fact that we need to really break away the stigma and the shame of being the victim and exposing who our perpetrator was or is, right? I also talked about the need for people to stop dismissing the stories that a victim gives as being truth or lie. um, I brought up the Me Too movement, that there are differing opinions about it, but that it really didn't matter about the story being a truth or a lie, but it was the fact that it's their version and their perception of the story. And even if it wasn't true, the person still needs healing. Why? Because why are you coming up with this false narrative? And even in the fact that it is true, the person still needs the same thing. They need healing. They've experienced something awful. And then as we ended our time together, I brought up the fact that um, men and women and children who are incarcerated in mental health institutions or who have been diagnosed with some type of mental health disorder, that the majority of them have experienced some type of sexual assault. I even was able to share a statistic that I read about that said that 80%, 80% of 21-year-olds who have been diagnosed with a mental health disorder, that it had been proven that many of them had been, that the 80% of them, 80% of them had been victims of sexual assault as children. And so this kind of got my brain thinking, like, you know what? I wanna wrap this up in a different way. I wanna ask the question about what are some of the things that families and communities and faith organizations should stop doing and start doing to help our children heal early so that they don't become a part of that 80%. I don't know about you, but that 80% really bothers me. And what we heard was that we have to stop telling our children to keep secrets, not to share, but to really break the silence and then believe them. That we need to have conversations with them about sex early, and to utilize the resources on Google and in different places to be able to help us to do that. And that most importantly, we need to be able to create the spaces for them to be able to feel safe enough to come to us without judgment, where they can sit with us to really help them process what was happening and to really support them. And that really communities of faith need to have the conversations with the children, middle aged children, teenagers, and young adults as well. We need to stop as a church making it a taboo thing to talk about within the church walls. And we really need to embrace the culture of see something, say something. Uh, we also talked about dealing with the perpetrators and our obligation to them as well. And I know it's like, what? But that, yes, we might be angry with them, and we most definitely don't condone what they've done, but that they need healing too, that they have possibly been exposed to sexual exploitation and assault themselves, but also in them being exposed as a perpetrator is a traumaful event for them too. So, as a community, what we've been challenged with and what we talked about, and what Dr. Denise has really shared with us, is that we need to learn to love them, to help them, and not to crucify them. We can really help our children by not normalizing things like the hookup culture and other unhealthy behaviors that have now become celebrated and rewarded on public platforms. I just think about, and it's not to knock anybody, but I think about all of the things that people um, do on social media, and we see all these challenges and things, and we getting half naked, and then we see, them driving in big cars and big fancy houses, but we don't look at the fact that there's darkness that's inside of that situation, right? That there's more to the story than the picture says. That even though we come up with the slogan, a picture has says 1,000 words, there's a lot of things that aren't being captured inside of that one picture. Our sister Apostle Shard charged us all with the responsibility to the next generation to be healed ourselves, being able to see past our own hurt so that we don't continue the discourse and the generations of brokenness, whereby we never get the opportunity to see how to heal. Along with that, Brother Ned and I really believe that our actions matter, that we need to really set the example, and that we want our children to see how to be able to do this thing by modeling healthy behavior. And I believe that as I in this wrap up, that Brother Ned really wrapped it up beautifully by letting us know that our actions matter, that how we listen matter, and that the people who we come into contact with, that they matter, and so that we should stop sweeping things under the rug and really begin to do the work that will essentially set us free. Well, I really enjoyed my time with everyone today, and I ask that all of you join me back in the throne room on next Wednesday at 5 p.m. as we take the cover off again on this healing challenge, mental health edition. I cannot do it without you. I don't want to do it without you, but we most importantly are here to support you. I love each and every one of you guys, and I can't wait to see you next week in the throne room. Have